Welcome to another edition of Swim Easy Speed. Today it's another special edition. We're going to be doing I believe this is session 7 of the video analysis from the pro camp. So we've got one more after this with one of the athletes. And then I'll probably do a couple more from previous people that had been at the camp. And then probably one or two of kind of the second sessions that we did here in the camp with individual athletes. So here we go. We'll just kind of jump right into this next session, and this is with pro out of California, first year pro out of California named Dominic Pollizzi. So I'll just let the video play for a little bit, and you can watch and see what his stroke looked like when we first started out. Okay, so we'll rewind it a little bit. Kind of go back to the beginning. We'll start to kind of show you guys what we focused on from the get-go. Yeah, so like I said, Dominic came out of California. He is a first-year pro, and he's 20, so he's a fairly young guy, and just trying to he's a real student of the sport, trying to figure all it out and trying to figure it all out and where he needs to improve and how to do it and get as much information about that as possible. So so here we go. You can see that his head was riding a little bit high. Kind of, you can see right there that angle that he's at in the water. So he's creating a good amount of drag that he's got to pull against. The most obvious thing that kind of sticks out right from the get-go is if you look right here when he recovers, he's got kind of the, that hook right there in his hand where, it's just not very relaxed coming over. And then if we go in, you can see that kind of the elbow goes in before the hand. So again, that's kind of putting into a little bit more perspective, and he does it on the right side too, of some of the stuff that we've got to deal with, and part of that is that angle on the water, but also part of it is it's somewhat his recovery. It's somewhat there's probably something going on down in here, kind of in a core area, where he's just not as balanced in the water as he needs to be. So we'll run it forward a little bit more, get to see underwater. So, he does a pretty good job, like right here. Drops the elbow there a little bit, but gets in a pretty good high elbow catch position. You can see right there where his hips really surge up onto the water. And that's kind of partly where that bounce is coming from, because the catch isn't as great on the right side. And you can see where he dumps the water right there and doesn't really push through all the way. But yeah, you can see kind of, we go here. I'll get it to right there. So you can see right there, there's the gap that we're talking about again. So, it's not insignificant amount of drag that he's creating in the water. And then when you look back even further, you can see how low those legs are in the water compared to. So just look at from here to there, and then we get a good idea of kind of the angle of the body on the water. And basically, then all of this becomes drag. Instead of what could be lifting him up on the water if it was all very, very flat. So if it was all like that, then if he's going forward, all this becomes kind of lift. And it basically just gives him more distance per stroke. So the next video will be up above, and you'll be able to see kind of, oh, no, it's actually going to be right in front. So here, so you can see where some of that, he does a pretty good job of driving that forward right there. but he does have a lot of momentum that's kind of, when he's coming that wide. So if we look, we talked the other day about, we want that kind of 30-degree angle off the water. He's under that a little bit, so that could be a little bit higher of a recovery. Probably for someone like him, maybe closer to about 40 degrees. So, we'd look like probably something like, there's 40. So that would be 40 degrees off the water. We'll go to the other side. There he's getting a lot of it from the breath. You can see when he turns to breathe how much is that side opens up. But we're sitting at 46, so he's pretty close there. But you can see how he picks up his head, then that goes in. A little bit, could probably grab a little bit more water there. And then you can see right here where, look at the track right there of that right hand. So that's really kind of when the hand is that wide on the pull, you've effectively taken out the lat out of the equation, and you're putting all of the pressure of pulling yourself through the water on the top part of the shoulder right there and on the bicep. So that's typically where you get you'll start to see people get a little bit of bicep tendonitis with stuff like that. Going forward. So here we are up above. But yeah, he's got a pretty stable core. It looks like, his feet aren't coming apart too much. And he's throwing most of that momentum straight forward. It is a heavily kind of really dependent kind of shoulder-driven stroke. So one of the things that I wanted to try to do and see if we could do was correct kind of that claw kind of entry in the front. And what we use were these finis, forearm fulcrums. But you can see he doesn't want to give that up. So even in that finis fulcrum, so basically right here, his fingers should be pressed against, we'll zoom up a little bit, pressed against this part right there. So, and they're not. He's still trying to bend it. And, one of the things, again, if we get back to this idea of, that the primary thing you're training is the brain and the nervous system and that skill of how to move. And the majority of that skill resides in your brain and your nervous system. And, the building up the musculature, the building up the cardiovascular system to handle all of that is all just kind of a byproduct of training the brain and the nervous system how to make the skill. So, this is something that we are not going to correct in one session. He's done that, for a few years now. And so he's made it repetitive over and over and over and over again. So for his brain and nervous system, that is the most efficient way to move. And if you look at the brain, 2 to 3% of the body weight, uses 20% of the resources. So 20% of the glucose, 20% of the oxygen that you produce. It's always looking for homeostasis. It's this really heavily energy dependent organ. It's always looking for homeostasis. So what's the easiest thing to do? So anytime you change the stroke, your brain and body are going to say, "What are you doing? We don't want to do it that way. That's not the best way to do it." Now, it might not be in the short term, but in the long term, it might. That it might improve that efficiency. But short term, no, it's going to feel horrible. But yeah, so you can see right here, he was struggling with trying to make that change. So we did some cues to give him a little bit better feel, a little bit better awareness of what he was doing and how he was moving. So you see, they actually fell off at the end. So here's another attempt, and we took a couple of cracks at this. I think this was like the second one. So you can see that the right side is a lot better. He's gotten kind of that cue. So the hand is entering a lot flatter. He's still struggling a little bit on that left side. Now, the interesting thing is, if I remember correctly, Dominic's left-handed. So, he, is able to make the change on his right side. And actually, that's the side that's not pulling as hard. But he's having more difficulty on the left. So he's probably really putting a lot of effort into the left. That's why it kind of is doing that kind of claw-like maneuver. And, this was one of the other things that we talked about in the camp was kind of right levels of effort and wrong levels of effort. And, there is such a thing. I mean, there's certainly such a thing when we were doing kind of the mindfulness work that you can definitely have kind of a wrong level of effort. And you can certainly do that in swimming. If you try and fight the water, you will lose every time. So we'll move it forward a little bit. I think you'll see kind of the application at the end. So it was a little bit better on the right side. The left, he's still got a little bit of work to do. It looks a little better. But the one thing that we really did get to, though, was he did start to get kind of the hips and shoulders a little bit more connected, but you can even see here that that's rotating a little bit more than that. And those things, you really want them to be kind of locked, almost tidally locked together, where they just move together and it's all connected through here, through the core. So I hope you guys enjoyed that little analysis real quick. And please like, share, comment down below. And as always, if there are any questions, please let me know. Thanks again.